Awesome. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first day of the Manila PTG. So we have plenty to go through today, and we kind of like have a slightly different schedule for today. Usually, we would start with our retrospective, but today we decided to move and start with some great topics first. I would like to get started for this meeting by doing a quick round of introductions around the room, especially because there are some familiar faces and some people that like would be nice to get introduction. So yeah, I'll start. So my name is Carlos. I'm the OpenStack Manila PTL, and yeah, I've been the Manila PTL for a couple of years now. You might be familiar with me running these meetings already. So yeah, I currently work at Red Hat. Yeah, so in a couple of years of OpenStack experience prior to that as well. So that's me. I can hand it over to Gotham. So Gotham, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. My name is Gautam Ravi, and I'm a long-time contributor to OpenStack Manila, and I currently am on the OpenStack Technical Committee as well. Um, so yeah, lovely PTG attendance. So happy to see it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hey. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Rodriguez. I have been contributing to OpenStack Manila since I want to say 2021. Um, I am core for the Python Manila client, Manila UI, and also DipStack plugin Ceph. And I'm happy to be here yet again for another excellent PTG. Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you. Awesome. Maurice, would you like to share a bit about you? Uh, if you feel like adding this to the chat as well, you guys just feel free to add a quick introduction to the chat as well. That also works. But yeah,
Sure. Yeah. My name is Maurice. I'm with Manila also for a long time now, and maybe noting that I'm working for SAP, and we are using the NetApp driver a lot.
awesome. Thank you. So, Mexico.
Yeah, so hi everybody. So my name is Enrico, I work at CERN, and I'm here today with some of my colleagues, Zach and Roberto, and we are using Manila to provision file shares to users which we're hosting on CFFS. And lately we are particularly interested in backups use cases. My colleague Zach has done some work around the backup driver, but he's the best person to describe his work, so I will let him do so.
Awesome. Thank you. Uh, Kiran. Right. Okay. Sorry. Just saw Kiran
Hello,
is unmuted. Yep.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Kiran. I'm kind of contributing to Manila for last couple of years, uh, and also a part of core team since 2-3 months. And I work for the Morris, specifically work for SAP Cloud, integrating the backend support for the NetApp driver.
Awesome. Thank you. Luis.
Hello guys, I'm Luis. Working in the OpenStack Cloud CERN, basically operator role there, and yeah, serving as a gateway for all the magic that Enrico and his colleagues offer for storage. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks. Roberto. Sup? You're muting, but I can't hear you. Uh, yeah. Uh, all right. Can we?
Can I go next?
Yeah, sure, sir. Sai, please.
Hi. This is Sai. I'm from NetApp India. It's been 1.5 years working with OpenStack, Cinder, and Manila. It's been great. And thank you, both of you, Carlos and Gautam. We're getting a great support. Yeah, we are looking forward to the features for this release. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Vida.
Hi, I'm Vita. I work at Red Hat, and I've been contributing to Manila for a long time. And also, I am currently the Manila bug czar and core for Manila Tempest plugin. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys at this PTG.
Awesome. Thank you. And Zach.
You hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, my name's Zach. I work in the Ceph team at CERN, and sort of in the past sort of year and a half, I've mostly been working on share backup in the context of Manila. And yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity to sort of talk about some of these topics.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Right. So, yeah, that was a nice round of introductions. Glad to hear from all of you, and thank you for joining. It's very important to have all of you joining. So, I think we can get started with our first topic of today, which is share backup improvements. And yeah, we have some the CERN folks joining us to talk about their work and all of the progress that they did. So yeah, I think I'll hand it over to Zach. And yeah, would you like to do this to take care of the screen sharing, Zach?
Yeah, I can do if you would like. Sure.
Yes.
Just okay. Let me just. Let's try like this. Okay. Can you see this okay? Oh, wait, hang on 1 second. There we go. You should be able to see this now.
Yes, I can.
Sure. Awesome. Okay, so let me just very quickly get up the... I don't have any sort of dedicated slides just to go through, but maybe for just to give a bit of context, sort of for the past year at CERN, we've been exploring, looking for basically a solution to provide backups for CephFS. We actually have a system that we developed in-house for this. It's something called CBAC. And sort of at the minute, the way that we do CephFS backups with CBAC, it's a manual operation. The sort of thing that we would like to eventually be able to do is make this sort of a user action, so something that users control, something that they have authority over through OpenStack. I've sort of been exploring basically developing a driver for CBAC that will interface with Manila, and it allows basically for a user to perform a backup through the Manila Python client in OpenStack, and it's all seamless and you don't have to worry about any of the stuff behind the scenes. When I talked to you guys about this in the past, I talked about some of the sort of things that I thought would be beneficial. We had a sort of a very brief discussion about some of the features that Manila offers. One of these was actually something called private data. In the past, I was actually, because CBAC has its own way of basically managing effectively what a share is and what a backup of a share is. In our parlance, we would call it a repository and snapshots within that repository. So we actually needed a way to map these two sort of different paradigms together. And I was doing this basically with a separate SQL database at the time. Since we've sort of last talked, I've changed this over to using this internal private data class that Manila has. And it works really, really well. I really like it. I think it's an awesome feature, but it's not necessarily something that at this minute in time is directly supported by how the share backup driver and share backup API is implemented. So maybe actually working from, well, what's the best way to do that? We can work from the top down, maybe, if we can look at share backup out of place restore. So one of the sort of big things for us in the context of BCDR, and also feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have questions or you want to raise a point. But one of the big things for us with backups is that we like to be able to not only do them in the context of the share that we're working with. It would be nice to be able to basically restore to a different location. It's a sort of something that's offered in Cinder with RBD backups, but it'd be something that we sort of think would be nice as well to have in Manila. It would really sort of make this quite a lot more usable for us in the sense that if you're limited to just the source share, you kind of hit an issue where if you don't have enough available space in the share itself, then it may not be possible to actually do the restore. Maybe this encourages users to basically restore by browsing and basically delete all of the files that they have in the share and then perform a restore just to see what they have, which is unideal. So one of sort of the key things that we think would be really nice is if there was a way to, in the Manila backup API, share backup API, have a way to do a restore that can target a different location. I don't know if anybody has any comments or if this is something that other people are looking for.
I think it was something that was brought up before, but
Sure.
I'm assuming it was in the context of the NetApp, backup
Okay.
driver as well.
Sure,
So if
sure.
there are folks in the room, maybe Kiran, Maurice, do you remember if you had a similar request or what was the status on that?
I think the idea was to start with a simpler implementation and then add this at the later point in time. But yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
The demand was there, I think, or the idea to implement this later. Yeah.
Makes sense. And the NetApp implementation kind of finished about last release, right? Or so I don't remember when we landed it.
Last release, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Share backup, right?
And
Yeah.
you folks have been testing it and hardening it so far.
Yep. Yep. Yes. 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 Correct.
Okay. So yeah, so it was thought about at the very beginning, but not implemented, Zach.
Not implemented, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you saying that creating a share from the backup, right? That is the use case. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, in the case that you create a backup of your share, when you then go to do a restore, you could do
Right.
this
Right.
to a different share potentially.
Yeah. So that was considered as a future work, but was not implemented at that time. So
Sure.
even in case of restore, currently restore does restore in itself, but that is
Yes.
also
Yeah.
a use case where the restore can be restored in any other share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The maybe as I say, so like the sort of nice thing for us in doing this is that if you imagine that you're running perhaps a couple of different Ceph clusters, you would be able to restore, for example, to one of these other clusters or a share on the same cluster in a different maybe tenant or project. And it would basically just give you flexibility, basically, in regards to BCDR. So this was just sort of, I don't know if, as I say, this is something that we're sort of interested in working on. I don't know if there are, maybe Garan, if this is something as well for you. Do you see a need for this, or?
I mean, that can be like it can be for you. For us, we haven't have
It's
come
not
across
so
a use
important.
case.
Okay.
Yeah, at this.
Okay. 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 Yeah, I can talk about maybe some of the other ones. So this, I'll highlight it here so you can see this. This data manager / backup driver, self-use data manager flag. So I think this is something that was worked on when share backup was actually first implemented. There's this flag that basically controls whether you use the internal NFS share backup implementation, and also basically if you were to actually use this flag, the purpose is basically you enable it, and it's allows your driver rather than the data manager to take authority for doing a backup. But it's I checked Gerrit fairly recently, and I think this is still the case. It's still something that's not respected. This is something that personally for me I'd be very interested in working on. I think I raised this in the past. Let me just pick that up. But this and the one below as well. This you have this sort of internal progress fetching mechanism that the share, that the data manager sort of does, but there isn't actually in sort of the base class used for the backup driver. There isn't a way for it to take authority for that. My thinking is that it would be useful for backups and restores. At least for us personally, I don't necessarily think that there's a need for one for a delete. It's kind of, at least how the data manager works at the minute, it kind of, a delete is seen as once you drop the metadata that you have on a given share in Manila, you sort of, it's not your priority anymore. But I think at least for the case of a backup and a restore, this can be really useful just as primarily as feedback for the users, and it's not something that's sort of done at the minute, at least. I'm not sure. Again, is this something that would maybe be useful for NetApp or other people?
So NetApp is not.
Go ahead.
The NetApp currently is not using the data manager, so they have the implementation inside the driver. But as you said, like this will cool, because currently we are just showing that the status as a backing up or backup creating something. But if you get a chance to show also the progress, specifically if you are doing the backup of GBs and GBs of data, then that will be useful. Something similar
useful.
with the
Okay.
migration.
Cool. Okay. And finally, this context for backup API calls. I said previously that we're sort of testing with the CBAC driver, actually using this private data implementation. I guess maybe just to, in case people haven't worked with private, I'm sure people maybe have, but in case there's anyone that hasn't, it's just sort of like a interface for working with the Manila DB in sort of a scoped context so that you can store some information. In our case, we use it for storing the mapping information between Manila and CBAC. But it's a really nice interface, and the only sort of thing that you need to be able to implement it in the driver is actually a sort of session context, so a context from the data manager. I'm not a security expert. As I understand it, the way that the sort of data manager provides contexts is you have this admin context that's used basically throughout the data manager, and then when you actually get to the point of use for basically performing a share backup API call, you get this scoped context regarding the actual operation that you're working with. Personally, I think it could be quite nice to actually expose this to the backup drivers. So give this as a parameter basically for the current share backup API functions, in the sense that it allows you to work with other parts of Manila. That my thinking is that if we were to just expose private data, that's one thing, but maybe this might be a more general approach that's more powerful. But again, as I said, I don't know if there's perhaps like a concern security-wise about exposing context to the driver or to users. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or comments on that or recommendations.
Well, in the past, I mean, it's the aspect of not being able to do anything with that context that was
Sure.
the limitation, and
Okay.
why? Because I mean, it's a class within the within one of the Oslo utilities and so on.
Yes.
So
Sure.
you can unpack it if you import the same utilities and so on. But if this unpacking is happening in the driver, you can take advantage of just the Manila logic that's there. Um,
Mm,
so you can just look into the context object to see what is relevant to the data manager. So no problems at all passing the context to the driver. It has to be done,
sure. Okay.
honestly, because if you're trying to log something, etc., that context object is what holds the information that you would want to see inside a log file, because some things that are parsed by the loggers are actually fetched directly from the context. So if that's
I
not
see.
happening right now, it was something, it was a omission. So we can go ahead and fix that. But if you were to pass that context directly to
Sure.
a different API, let's say the backup API from CBAC.
Hmm.
I don't know how it would end up parsing that data, right? Like technically, you would have to unpack it. You'd have to give it certain things, or create your own context of sorts, maybe with
Absolutely.
headers or something
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah.
the way that we sort of do it with the CBAC driver is so you pass the raw context as a parameter as
Mhm.
a part of your backup API call, and then I have I, I effectively just import the private data um, class, and I build a sort of what's the word for it? I have I guess an overlay uh, class that uses this, and it implements sort of some sane sort of checks, basically, that make it so that the CBAC driver can use the context for fetching this mapping information. It can do it safely, um, and for us, in this sort of context, it works really well, because you don't have to make a large amount of changes actually to Manila or to the share backup API. It's just a parameter that you pass, and then the logic is actually mostly in the driver. For CBAC itself, you don't have to even, as long as the sort of the format of what you put into private data, for example, uh, when you consume this context is understood. The actual, at least for us, the format of the context is less important than just being able to get access to it in the driver and being able to use it. Um,
Awesome. Yeah, it should go to the driver layer. So, like I
mm.
said, I think it was an omission because we didn't need it in the
Sure,
NFS
sure, sure.
driver or something.
Mm.
And making changes to that driver interface should not be a problem,
Hmm.
because I mean, the only other driver that exists in Tree is that NFS driver.
Mm.
So you should be able to, while you're making these changes, also affect the NFS driver, so make sure it doesn't break by fixing its method signatures and so on.
Yes, yeah.
And you should be fine. Like even if you don't want to use the context in the NFS driver, passing that as the first parameter in the signature, like we do everywhere else, is
Mm.
totally fine. Um,
Okay, okay, okay.
yeah. And I had a couple of these things on the second and the third topic that you had.
Sure.
Again, both of those totally okay with me. I don't see a problem. Like for example, you were trying to make sure that the data manager does not implement half of the functionality that you would want to implement in the driver itself.
Mm.
There's actually a way to do this even without using a Boolean.
Ah, really? Okay.
Although the Boolean is, I mean, because it exists,
Mm.
you can do an if-else thing. But the way we do this with the share manager and the share driver API is we
Mm.
have a base driver class, and
Yep.
we have the actual drivers that are inheriting from this base driver class. And if they have an override, that's what's getting invoked by the manager. And if they don't have an override, the superclass method is getting invoked. And so
I
we could
see.
use the same approach. It is a little cleaner than having
Just a
the data
flag.
manager. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay, okay.
Um, so that would be my feedback if that is feasible. But I've not looked at the code properly to see if this approach is better. So either case, it makes sense that if you have the backup driver functionality, you expose it and you override what the base driver is doing.
And you said this is done in what sort? Sorry, what
Yeah,
in the
so if you
share
want to
the
look,
base
it's the
class
share.
or
Yeah, exactly. So there is a driver.py,
okay,
manala/share/driver.py, and that's the base driver to all of the share manager drivers.
sure.
So the NetApp implementation for backup, for instance, exists in its own share manager driver,
Mm,
and
okay,
that's so you'll be able to see that the way that logic works is everything is implemented in the driver.py, and then everything is overridden in the actual driver files.
got it.
Um,
Okay,
and
I'll
if there
definitely have
is
a
a
look at
generic
this.
implementation, you should always be able to do a super class invocation from within the subclass.
Okay, okay,
So that's a
okay,
pattern we kind of have on the share manager side. Again, this was probably not fully flushed out for the backup stuff because we only ever had one driver to begin with.
mm.
Um, so yeah, it would be nice to clean it up.
I will definitely look into this. It's not something that I was aware of, so that's really good to know. And if it's cleaner, then it sounds good to me. um, I think you said as well that you had one other.
Yes.
I see you've
So a
written
couple
some
of
stuff as well
yeah,
for
the questions from line 57.
sure.
So or rather 58. Uh, so I think for this restore API,
Mm,
the original backup spec had a bunch of APIs that it implemented, right? And we kind of shared what the endpoint would be, what the JSON schema would be, and so on. So we'd probably start with something like that
okay.
to look at what the API looks like.
Mm,
So here's the original backup spec, um,
So,
which was implemented a while ago. Yeah,
okay.
if
and
we're creating a share from the backup, I think the way we create a share from the snapshot, we just need to specify the backup ID. And
yeah.
internally, Manila will create the share and then will perform the restore of a backup into that share.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So we just have to probably put that down in like even a light spec, right?
Mm,
Just write down what are the changes that are happening to the API. We're just changing one parameter, or maybe more. I don't know. You do have the concept of a backup type. So is that relevant to the restores? Probably or probably not. Or how do we pass any metadata? And so on. So if you think there is any more data that's there, we'd probably flush it out using that specification
okay.
mechanism. And a spec is written into the Manila specs repository. So it's the same process as with submitting code to Manila, except it's the specification is just a text file that's written into a different repository and gone through code reviews the same way.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
yep,
Uh,
uh,
sorry, I keep
an
interrupting you.
extension of that
Be
is what limitations are we foreseeing already? And if we don't, this is the sort of thing we'll have as those code review discussions.
mm, okay.
Because when you say, let's restore a backup, the backup has ownership as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how do you distinguish that, or rather, you cannot restore a backup that belongs to a tenant into a different tenant. That's a base limitation that we're going to have. Uh,
Mm,
Maybe, you know, do we see any other limitations like that? Um, and maybe something specific to this FFS aspects or something as well. And how do you start exposing those to the end user? For example, there are some preconditions that Manila can impose on the API, but we don't
mm,
know many of the things until we hit the backend, right?
I see.
So
Okay.
what would we what kind of error conditions are we going to show up in the API and versus as asynchronous messages? to the end user that's trying to restore.
Mm. Um, Error messages. I think it's a good question. I think it's not something that I've actually thought about, to be honest.
No,
It's
no, absolutely. No, don't want to put you on the spot, but I just wanted to seed the thought to
sure,
say,
sure, sure.
when you're writing the spec, these are the things that you should probably think about and
Think about.
put
Okay,
down.
I understand.
Yeah. And these vehicles exist, by the way. So there is a way to do asynchronous user messages. Um, we probably have not extended that into the backup interface, but it should be very straightforward to do so. You would be importing a different module, and it's like creating a log message.
Okay.
Except this log message is going to be to the end user and exposed via the API. So that's just an idea, and maybe you have a use case for it or not. But this is the sort of thing I think we can flush out in the specification, such that you don't have to get to the code and start going back and forth with it.
Yeah, better to do that. I mean, I guess from your perspective, this is something that if it's worth doing, it's worth doing in the sense that multiple people can benefit from it, not just CBAC.
Yeah, I
So
think so. Absolutely.
If it's done, it should, as you say, it should be done as a spec, and it should be something that's sort of talked about and decided. So, as I say, it can benefit multiple people. I think that it's completely sane. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. That's the feedback I had.
Sure. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Gotham. I'll have a look at this. I've looked at blueprints before, but I don't think I've seen this spec set up, so I will have a look at that. I don't have any other major points, unless maybe people have questions for me or other things that they want to raise. I'm not sure, Enrico or Louise or Roberto, if there's anything else that you would like to say or anything like this. Maybe a good time.
I think this is clear, right?
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much. I very much appreciate the feedback and the sort of the chance to speak on these points. I'll stop sharing my screen now, Carlos. Maybe
Awesome.
you want to take back.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing all of your thoughts. I'm writing a couple of action items to help us remembering some of the discussions, and also took some notes. But again, thank you. Like it's great work. Like we are very happy to see like all of this work, and we are very excited with CBAC as well. So yeah, if you like some other help with other things, and as soon as I have like a specification and you'd like to tag us on reviewing it, we'll be happy to do that. So yeah, please let us know, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Sure.
Yeah, so I agree with these points and the specification and everything. Yeah, I would like to ask if there are any other questions. If not, I believe we can have quick break and go to the next topic, which I think it's also nice. I try to collocate CFFS, all things CFFS, right after this backups topic, because I mean that's something you guys also have been consuming. So yeah, I hope you are able to participate on the next discussion, or listen to it, at least, where we'll talk about a lot of the things we have been doing with the CFFS driver and CFFS drivers and our plans for the next couple of cycles. So yeah, maybe we can take like a 7-minute break and be back at 14:45. How does that sound?
Sounds good. I was trying to do the reaction sound. There we go.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So see you in 7 minutes.